I'll admit it. I am one of the first people to say that Iowa State is going to win the Big 12, the national championship this year, and probably every year until the end of time. But let's have a real sit down and talk about, is Iowa State good enough to win the Big 12? Is Iowa State good enough to win a college football playoff game? We're breaking it down today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. We are still in the middle of Iowa State's bye week, so no preview. We're going to break down where is Iowa State at as a program at this moment in time. Are they a legitimate contender? We're going to be pretty raw. I'm not going to lie to you to start today's episode off. And then we're going to talk about what has Iowa State learned throughout their first four games. Because as Matt Campbell says, you just got to get a little bit better week to week. Where has Iowa State gotten better throughout their first 4 weeks? We'll talk about that in the second segment. And then finally, where does Iowa State rely right now? And where do they need to rely as we move throughout this season? We'll break that down in the final segment. Of course, can't wait to dive into all that and more. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. When answering or asking, when you're asking the question, is Iowa State a good enough team to win the Big 12? When answering that question, you need to look at the team as a whole, okay? And what makes up a team? Bunch of different positions. So we're going to kind of gloss over the positions, but this isn't a positional breakdown or anything like that. I'm just generally looking at Iowa State as a team and to better evaluate them other than saying, yep, the offense is good enough. Let's move on to the defense. We're going to take a little bit of a closer look at how the cogs intertwine. How do they play into each other's hands a little bit? And I think the best place to start is on offense at the quarterback position. Is Rocco a good enough quarterback to win the Big 12? The simple answer is yes. Is Rocco a good enough quarterback to win a college football playoff game and or the national championship? Honestly, I do think so. I actually do. I think that Rocco is very much slept on by the national media, and so it's easy for a lot of people to think that, we think he's good, but is he really that good? I think he is that good. I think he's gotten a lot better from last season where we saw a lot more turnovers. This year, the only interception that he has is it shouldn't have been an interception. It goes off the receiver's hands. It's got to be a catch, So I think Rocco's gotten a lot better in that regard. His ability to understand what the defense is giving him and adjust play calls accordingly, hence the end of the Kansas State game, I think sets him apart from just someone who can throw the ball really well. Rocco has all the attributes. Great leader, poise, under pressure, handles the end of games really well, is best up against the back of a wall. Maybe that's the only downside is he's throughout the course of the game not as good as he is at the end of the game, which is like the craziest thing you could possibly say as a negative. I think Rocco is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Probably not going to be in the Heisman conversation. Numbers-wise, just not going to be there. And that's okay. All right, we got to internalize that, accept that, and move on. But I think he is by far one of the best quarterbacks, especially from what we've seen through these first four games. I don't think until this point I have had a lot of concerns with Rocco. Generally very good. Couple throws here and there, of course, we're going to want back, but that's every quarterback ever. No quarterback is going perfect the rest of this season. Who is he throwing to? The wide receivers. Okay, let's start there as far as receiving threats because we will talk about the tight ends. Receivers, I don't know if we're on a Big 12 championship caliber yet. I do think that they will get better, and I think we're starting to see the integration of the wide receiver more into this offense. But as it stands right now, I am apprehensive to say that the wide receivers are doing enough, essentially, to win Iowa State a Big 12 championship. I think they're very close. I think they're very close. And what I saw against Arkansas State was honestly very promising. Very promising. But I don't know if it's quite there yet. Very close. Tight ends, I think we've got that one. I think we are good enough on the tight end front, not only as a receiving threat, you can throw them out wide in the slot or whatever, or from the pop pass, on the end of the line position there, but also in the blocking regard, I think that the tight ends are more than good enough. Offensive line, I feel pretty good about that. I don't actually hate where Iowa State is at offensive line-wise. Could it be better? Absolutely. And we will talk a little bit about the lessons learned in the lessons learned segment, where this offensive line is at. But is it the real question, I guess, for this segment is it a good enough line to win the Big 12? I think it is, because of the backs behind them. The quarterback and the running back behind this offensive line are able to work with what this offensive line is giving them. I'm okay with where this offensive line is at. Of course, you want an offensive line that gives you 3 business days to throw and opens up holes wider than the Red Sea for Carson Hansen or Abu Sama to run through. But I've seen enough to say that, yes, this is a good enough offensive line. I absolutely think so. Running backs, I think we've got that one. I do think the running game is something we will talk about more in this lessons learned and where does Iowa State rely the rest of this episode. But it's definitely, it's serviceable. I think across the board, the offense is good enough, not going to blow anyone out of the water, but good enough to win Iowa State a Big 12 championship. However, if the Iowa State isn't going to blow everyone's socks off, if they're not going to score 40 points, that means you have to hold the other team. Is the defense good enough for Iowa State to win a Big 12 championship? Let's start on the defensive line. Right now, it is a big, fat maybe for me. I don't know. I haven't seen nearly enough personally, and maybe I'm just a snob, but I have not seen enough personally as far as pressuring a quarterback from this defensive line. I have not seen enough against running quarterbacks for this defensive line for me to say, yep, this is one of the best defensive lines in the country. I understand that they are very dominant. I understand that Tamatoa McDonough came up huge in the clutch against Iowa. How important Dom Orange is to this team, I understand those. But when you're talking about Iowa State in comparison to the rest of the Big 12, are they good enough to beat the basically second best team in the Big 12 and bring home the hardware? I need to see a little bit more from this defensive line. Very close, just not quite there yet for me. Personally, I think we're going to need to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. I think run blocking or run stopping, we are pretty good. It's against the pass, and that is going to be a glaring problem as I get through this segment. Wow, got into my coffee today. I'm a little stuttery. Linebackers, let's go up from defensive line to the linebacker, working our way away from the ball. Linebackers, by far and away, yes, not even close. Don't even really need to talk about it, to be honest. We do have some injury concerns. We'll see exactly how those play out after the bye week. Does that maybe leak into the later part of the season? Don't want this to turn into what it was last year, because this linebacker core is too good. The talent at the top end is ridiculous. And I honestly have seen more than enough. I think this linebacker core is very good. Could it be better? Absolutely. We are not at the end of the season. You're best at the end of the season. But as of right now, at this point in the season, I like where the linebackers are at. And I'm glad that they lived up to my expectations throughout the first 4 weeks of what I was saying all off season long, because boy, was I in on these linebackers all off season long. All right, secondary. Let's talk about these guys to round out this segment. No, I don't think the secondary is good enough to win Iowa State a Big 12 championship. Last season was phenomenal for Iowa State. And I will say, I will counter my own argument. It's like there's 2 people in here with this. I don't know if it's the secondary or if it's the defensive line not getting pressure. I am leaning towards both units are struggling against the pass. Now, when you look at the raw numbers, Iowa State isn't giving up anything super ridiculous through the air. It also helps that you've played an FCS school, Arkansas State, and Iowa. It just does. Against Kansas State, Avery Johnson threw for 273, and we all know what happened against Arkansas State, 222 through the air. You're gonna have good numbers. Obviously, Iowa 83 through the air, and South Dakota getting 126, a serviceable number. But I just don't see, when you look at the actual tape, when you and consider what South Dakota left on the table. We talked about Bowman. I don't think this secondary is in the elite category. Can they? Yes. I think they're getting better with time, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I just don't think they're quite there yet. Defensively, very much on the fence. Very much on the fence. Defense wins championships. If Iowa State wants to win a Big 12 championship, that defense getting a little bit better is going to go a very long way. Offensively, I think we're there. And we could maybe get into a few shootouts. Not exactly Iowa State's forte, but you can win games that way. You absolutely can. It feels like right now that is kind of the route they're going to have to go unless this defense finds a way to not change its identity necessarily, but really turn it up to 11. I'm going to need to see more out of this defense personally. Let me know. What do you think in the comments below? We're at Nick_Marv. Love interacting with you guys. Let's do a mailbag for Friday, on this bye week. Just throwing that out there. Ask me some questions, and maybe we'll get to those on the show. Let's pivot away from that evaluation of the team as I've seen them so far and talk about what does Iowa State learn through these first 4 weeks, because that's what makes a great team. Not where you start, but where you finish. What do you learn along the way? We'll talk about that coming up here in 1 second. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost a weekend. We're getting there. Time to look back on this last weekend and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Iowa State, it's tough to pick. Trey Bell, Rocco Becht. The interception was huge. I'm going to lean Rocco Becht, dropping it in a bucket for Townsend down the stretch. Rushing touchdown, made a huge difference against Arkansas State to remain 4-0. Just like Rocco Becht delivered for Iowa State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18, November 18th. Iowa State through the first 4 weeks is perfect for just the third time in school history, which is pretty electric, not going to lie. But I do think there are some holes in this team to this point in the season. Here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I know it's shocking. I understand you. I hear you. I'm out here hollering from the rooftops how good Iowa State is. Hey, over there, Iowa State's winning a Big 12 championship. The guy yells back, why is he on the roof? Like, can we figure that out? Someone call somebody. That's a fair reaction to if you hear someone yelling on the roof. Maybe you should call somebody about Iowa State winning a Big 12 championship. Nonetheless, I'm switching it up. I'm calling out Iowa State. I just got done watching a Falcons special teams coach rip into a team about everything they did wrong, and I believe it was a preseason game. And it just made me realize sometimes you really got to come down on the team and be like, hey, this is what's going on. We got to figure this out. We just got done talking about Iowa State as a Big 12 contender. Are they a contender right now? I would say yes. I guess I never really answered that. Shout out to you for making it to this point in the episode, because you got your answer. I would say yes, Iowa State is a Big 12 title contender. They have a ways to go, but they are in a very good spot right now because of what they've learned through the first 4 weeks. So let's talk about it. What do I think Iowa State has learned through their first 4 weeks? Obviously, they learned a lot more than these things I am about to point out. Okay, but let's go week by week. Iowa State over Kansas State, over in Ireland, 24-21 final. First thing I think they learned is, and I hesitate to say this because I don't know how much this is sticking, but I think we learned how important play calling is. Maybe we shouldn't pitch it on the 1 yard line in the pouring rain. Let's just hand that off. I don't know exactly. I guess that I wrote that down before this episode, and I was like, that's a gimme. Yeah, I feel like we learned that, right? We made that mistake. This game ends up coming down to the wire, a lot closer than it needed to be. We learned from that, though. After watching the Arkansas State game, where we made a few questionable play calls, I guess I don't know for certain that they learned that. I would hope that they did. Nonetheless, let's talk about Rocco Becht, 14-28, 183 through the air. I think Iowa State learned what Rocco is capable of in this game. Obviously, the start to this one was really ugly, but down the stretch, Rocco Becht was putting balls in buckets when he needed to. He was on target. He was on time. He was quick with it. I thought Rocco played really well in this game, and I do think, obviously, Iowa State was going to rely on Rocco Becht a lot this season. Junior quarterback guy, you kind of have to run your program through. Everyone knew that this was going to happen. This isn't a shock, but maybe not so much of a learning point, definitely an affirmation, right, of what Iowa State's quarterback is capable of. How much pressure can we put on him? I think we learned that right there. I don't know if we learned so much from the rushing game. And it's really a question of, is it what we learned or is it what the coaching staff learned? Because something I learned from this game, our defense pass rush is not ideal. Come away with a sack in this one singular sack. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more defensive line-wise in this one. But nonetheless, I thought Iowa State did okay. No interceptions in this one either, which was wild because this game was just turnover central. Let's move on to South Dakota. What did Iowa State learn in this one? They're capable of scoring a lot of points, 55-7, running away with this one against South Dakota. I think that when you look back at the game play by play, they didn't necessarily dominate this game in every single way. I thought that they were letting South Dakota receivers get open and they were getting bailed out by drops and just bad throws in general. So defensively, maybe not quite there. Offensively, Rocco Becht, 19 of 20, 278 yards through the air and 3 touchdowns. And then he rushed 5 times for 15 yards as well. I think Rocco kind of took over in this one and obviously didn't even play the whole game. Alex Mansky was 4 of 5 with 28 yards through the air, totaling to 306 for Iowa State. I think they learned where you can take advantage of a team like South Dakota, go at them, and go get it. On the ground, they rushed for 223, but it went, 2, 4, 6, 8 deep with Xavier Townsend and Rocco Becht in there as well. Dylan Lee showed, I think, what he was capable of in this game. They learned kind of where their their running back room is at, Defensively, no sacks in this one, which is a little bit odd, but nonetheless, it's kind of one of those games. I'm going to let it slide. Patton was a dude in this one. Marcus Neal going for 5 total tackles, 2 solo as well. Jontez Williams, obviously Patton with an interception, like Reinke with an interception. This was a very good game for Iowa State. It's hard to really draw a lot of conclusions from South Dakota, but I think Iowa State learned just how good Aiden Flora is in this one more than anything. We will see how he returns from the hamstring deal. Hopefully the bye week is very, very kind to him. I think it can be. That was the biggest thing I learned. Aiden Flora is unbelievable, and we'll have to see when he gets back, if he's back at full form. Against Iowa, what did Iowa State learn? To me, you learn how important the defensive pass rush is in this one, okay? Obviously, pretty quiet the most of the game, and honestly, Gronowski was kind of running all over Iowa State in this one, but McDonough coming up with back-to-back sacks basically to seal that game. If one of the learning points from this game was not, oh, wow, that's crazy what happens when the pass rush is there, we would need to evaluate something. And I know that they know, hey, sacks are good, but we talked about this before the season. There didn't seem to be a lot of urgency from Iowa State on the sack front. They were just kind of like, if we get them, we get them. I think that game showed just how big they can be, especially in huge moments. Don't be afraid of that. Do not be afraid of that. Other than that, nothing too crazy from this one. Rivalry game. I'm going to move on here. I got a minute to talk about Arkansas State. What did Iowa State learn in this one? How to win a clunker. That's really the biggest conclusion I draw from this, because there's a lot of learning points in here, and I can't tell you if they have learned from this or not yet. Obviously, Jalen Raynor, 222 through the air, leading rusher with 83 on the ground and a touchdown. I don't know how they're going to respond to quarterbacks that have sufficient legs. That is one of my main concerns for Iowa State the rest of this season. But they did, I know, learn how to win a very weird, close game like this. They come away with the win, 24-16. You want to talk about all the things that happened in that game? Fine. Let's talk about the end score. Iowa State had more points than their opponent. They get a win. They stay 4-0. They get through the heat. They get through the first portion of the season coming off of the big trip from Ireland that everyone talks about. They got through it. They won the game. Sometimes you just have to win the game. It isn't about being flashy or getting, this many yards or looking good in this way. Who had more points? That's how you win games. And I think Iowa State, obviously, I know Iowa State did that, but I think Iowa State learned sometimes just get it done. It's not on the game plan. That's fine. What do we need to do to come away with this win? And they did it. And I think you actually can pull something from that. So Iowa State now 4-0. Where do they rely right now? Are those ups or downs, or are those positives, negatives? Where do they need to rely the rest of the season? We'll cover all of that in the final segment of today's show. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all your personal accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel like you're in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Make sure you maximize investments with Monarch, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner and or a financial advisor. Monarch makes it all super easy. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks, and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Sometimes when you look at a team, it's really easy to know they go through this route to win games. They do this, and that's what they're really, really good at. What is Iowa State good at? How are they 4-0? Questions we'll answer today on Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There are a few things that Iowa State is really good at. There are some things I think they could be better at, obviously, as we've talked about in the lessons learned segment. And what has Iowa State done in each position group to prove to me that they are a Big 12 championship contender? They can get better, but they do some things really well. They really do. For one, I think they put a lot of trust in Rocco Becht, and they do it well. The best case of this that we can pull is because the reason is because they directly talk about it. But giving Rocco 2 plays to end the Kansas State game, I believe it was a 4th and 3, and they just say, do this or do this. One of these 2 plays. Rocco walks up to the line. All right, here's what we got. Can. Yep. Hike. First down. See you back in America, Kansas State. That's basically what happened. You use your quarterback, Rocco Becht, like that, you're going to win games. You kind of throttle him down, dumb it down. Don't make it too complicated for him. Take a lot of the decision-making out of it for him. Just you essentially become the player on the field as the coach by making it so simple. I don't think you're playing into Rocco Becht's hands. I think Iowa State's done that very well. Allow Rocco Becht to be Rocco Becht and win games for you. Leaning on Rocco Becht is a very good thing. We're also going to talk about this. We haven't yet. They lean on Kyle Conradi a little bit as well. We don't know what's going on with Kyle Conradi right now, or at least I don't. Maybe I'm just out of the loop, but as soon as I get in the loop, I will tell you, okay? You can trust me there. I don't know what the deal is. Is he going to be out? Is it going to be an extended period of time? Obviously didn't look good against Arkansas State. 4 points left on the table. And then didn't get seen the rest of the game. You don't love that. You don't want to be in that situation. So did we lean on him so far? Yes, absolutely. Will we be able to in the future? I don't have the answer there yet. I think Iowa State is a better team when Kyle Conradi is out there on the field. Period, point blank, end of sentence. I don't know what the third phrase of that would be. But if Iowa State has Kyle Conradi, they're better. End of story. Defensively, I think Iowa State leans on the linebackers quite a bit. I don't really have a great reason for you there. I just think that they need to. And maybe this is a really good transition to where they need to lean and that they're not so much right now. I do think, though, that the linebackers are carrying the brunt of this defensive load for Iowa State. The defensive line up front is doing a very good job. I am not a defensive line coach, so I'm not going to get into the weeds there. But I do think that they're doing their job. And I think what we're seeing from Dom Orange is he's playing better, in my opinion. Tamatoa McDonough is showing what he's able to do. Iziagu is looking very good, in my opinion. Maybe one of the more standout defensive linemen. Maybe that makes me a casual. Let me know in the comments or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Nonetheless, I think the linebackers are kind of carrying a bit of this load defensively. Let's pivot. Where should Iowa State be leaning? I think Iowa State needs to lean on their defensive line a little bit more. And what do I mean by that? It more so needs to be said in the way of Iowa State needs to get more production from their defensive line. I am going to be completely honest with you. I don't have a headset on during these games. I don't know what's being called. I don't know what their end objective is every time they go out there for a defensive snap. If it's not to sack the quarterback more than it is right now, I don't think Iowa State's doing it right. I think they have the talent. I think they need to be getting more pressure on the quarterback. Sometimes it doesn't really look like that's their goal. And you know what? I don't know. I guess I never played defensive line. Shocker. Look at my arms. I mean, are you surprised? So maybe they don't go for the sack every play. I should really talk to somebody about this. But I think that they need to impose their will a little bit more as a defensive line. I think they have the talent. They have the ability to. I'd like to see it more. Secondary, we're not really going to talk about that. I don't think we need to lean on the secondary as much. I think they're out there doing a really good job. They just have a little bit of a ways to go, like I talked about in the first segment. Offensively, I think they need to lean on their wide receivers a little bit more if they want to win a Big 12 championship. Leaning on the tight ends is great. We've seen it work for teams throughout the history of football, but I don't think you have that deep threat like you kind of need to if you're going to be a Big 12 title contender, and especially if you're going to play a team from the SEC or the Big 10 or whatever in the college football playoff. We've seen Iowa State beat Iowa, a Big 10 team, of course, and maybe a Big 10 isn't the best example. For some reason, I have an SEC ad right in front of my face on ESPN.com, so maybe that's why it's on top of my mind. I cannot believe that, actually, now that I'm thinking about that. Shocker. But I do think you need to be able to stretch the field. We've seen Eskelson is probably the best bet for that. Townsend against Arkansas State was a bit of a sent from the heavens type of situation. And so I do want to see that utilized a little bit more. I think Sowell could be that guy potentially. Dom Overby has the talent. I mean, he's gotten open multiple times. I don't know if it's something with Rocco and him that the ball's not exactly put on spot every time. I don't think it's Rocco because I've seen Rocco drop it in a bucket, but it always feels like it's just a little bit off with Overby. So I don't know what the deal is there. And it's always just enough that Overby doesn't come down with it. Not always, obviously. Touchdown against, I believe, was it Arkansas State? Yes. Touchdown against Arkansas State came down with that one, but I thought that ball was underthrown by about a yard, maybe two. Not too crazy, not enough for the defender to be able to make a play on it, but more so than I would have liked. I would have liked it over the top into the back of that end zone where Dom can go over the top with it as opposed to having to jump back into the ball. We've seen that from Dom, and we haven't seen a lot of, return on investment or success from that. I don't know what it is. Dom's got it. He definitely has the ability. I don't know what's missing there. Once we figure that out, I do think that Iowa State has the talent at wide receiver to stretch the field. I think they do. I don't think we need to be Iowa breaking routes off at 8 to 10 yards. Every single receiver on the field. I don't think we have to do that. I want to see them lean on the wide receivers a little bit more throughout the rest of this season. Get them a little bit more integrated. Is it Townsend on the jet sweep? Maybe. But nonetheless, I think it has to happen. Lastly, running backs. I don't hate where we're at. I think we need to rely or lean on Carson Hansen more. Now, that is absolutely nothing against Abu-Sama. That's probably going to get clipped, and it's going to come across wrong. And you know what? If that fuels Sama, great. I'm not saying that Carson Hansen is miles better than Abu-Sama. I'm just saying the way that we're doing the rotation and like sandwiching this, I don't love it. I'm not sure exactly if there's like not a better way for them to do this. I don't love how it feels like we're just getting one more drive out of Hansen at the end of these games. Is it something internal that I'm not aware of? Relatively medium possibility of that. But I would like to see them rely on him a little bit more throughout the course of the game. Maybe you go alternate drives after the first, 3 sets, then you alternate, and then you go a little heavier on Sama in the third, and you bring Hansen back, whatever. Not to say Sama hasn't been effective, but I just want to see Hansen more personally. I know that probably sounds wrong. And you know what? Let me know in the comments or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. I'm leaning Hansen. I'm okay with saying that. I think Sama's really good too. And I think they're a great dynamic duo. I just want to see Hansen in there a little bit more. Feels like at times Sama's just getting stuffed. And I don't know. Maybe that's the offensive line too. Nonetheless, I do think Iowa State's a Big 12 contender. I think they have a lot of room to grow, and I think that they're very capable of doing it. Look out for Iowa State come the end of the year. Let me know. What do you think? Comment section, Twitter, you know where to find me. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.